Greetings, ghouls and boils. I'm the Ghoul Master, a loving homage to horror anthology narrators of yesteryear. Wait, I'm an homage? Why didn't anybody tell me? You'll hear from my agent about this. But first, let's get to the heart of the matter. I'm here to tell you about the new horror anthology, Memoirs of the Morbid, on Kickstarter in time for Halloween. Memoirs of the Morbid is a black and white homage to classic horror comics from the 40s and 50s, containing 5 self-contained stories by some of the best indie comic creators out there. There's that word again. I better not find out homage is an insult. Anyways, Memoirs of the Morbid is completely done and ready to go to the printer. So don't make a grave mistake by missing it.
All right, guys. Hi, everybody. It's Grant with Rodney again. How's everybody doing tonight? Looks like we have Joe, Carl, and Donna in the audience today. And our special guest tonight is Rodney Fyke.
Hey guys, how we doing? I gotta ask, who did the scream in the video? The scream was great, or the laugh.
Honestly, so the voice of the Ghoul Master in that video was I literally typed Crypt Keeper style voice into Fiverr.com.
Nice.
And found him like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. So, you know what? Normally I ask how you want me to introduce you. But I forgot today. Now, I know that you are the writer and artist of Roadkill Rampage.
I am just the writer.
Oh, you're just the writer?
Yes.
Okay.
I write and draw. I wrote and drew Peanut Pudding and Jelly and Pitter Patter. But we've had 3 different artists on Roadkill Rampage.
Oh, okay.
Adam Fields has drawn issue 3, and he is the artist on issue 4.
Right. And that reminds me, I have met you in real life one time.
Yep.
I think that was at what?
Gem City last year.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't do Cincinnati last year, did you?
I did not.
Okay.
Is that a good show to do?
I mean, I think so. We're from Cincinnati, so it's a good show for us because there's no travel expense. But I know it can be a challenge to find a hotel right now because the companion hotel for the Cincinnati Convention Center doesn't exist because they tore it down and they're rebuilding and they haven't started building yet. So getting a hotel in and around the Cincinnati area can be difficult. But it's a good show. There's 30 to 40,000 people there every year. And we do well.
Oh, cool. Okay. I know some of the guys that I usually go to shows with are going to that this year. From looking at the guests, I think the reason why I didn't want to go was I was looking at the guest list and it looked, I don't know, the conventions that focus more on the celebrity guests, I tend to not do very well.
Right.
But I don't know, would you say that this is more focused on celebrity guests or more on like the vendors?
I know exactly what you're talking about because we don't really do well at those types of shows either. But they have made a concerted effort to make it more than just a celebrity signing show. They have reworked and retweaked things. So even though there are celebrities there, I mean, they're bringing in Jim Lee for a day. He's going to be there on Saturday, only Jim Lee and Scott Williams. So they're bringing in pretty big name artists as well. Last year, Humberto Ramos was there. Which I've met him before, but he was there in my hometown and I got to buy another page of artwork from him. So I was happy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. but yeah, they've got some pretty big names. Joe Benitez is there every year. If you're a fan of Joe Benitez, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And there's tons of guys like us there. So yeah, it's a good mix. Jay Foskett, Dave Akins, all those kind of guys. It's a good mix.
Cool. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year I'll think about going to that one.
Yeah, it's hard to get into because they've got a huge waiting list. So if you are interested in it, well, you need to go for it as soon as they post the submissions because they're usually gone within 24 hours.
Well, I might be able to share a table with one of the guys.
Okay.
One of the guys that I normally do tables with. So before we get too far along, I do want to mention, I do see a lot of people saying hello. I do need to mention that the Independent Creator Directory is my sponsor. Are you a member of the Independent Creator Directory, Rodney?
I don't think so.
So it's a neat little thing. Do you know Joe Bachman?
Yes.
Okay, Joe Bachman is the guy who runs this, and he's the one who's doing all the coding for it and stuff. And basically what it is you can look up your favorite creators on there. Or I can't remember, Joe. Is it officially up and running?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if you said Joe Bachman, and in my mind I thought of somebody else. But Joe's here. I don't know, Joe. I've met so many people. Do we know each other?
Maybe not. I don't know.
Okay. So we do now.
Yeah, it's a cool little thing. It is up and running. Cool. I'm gonna have to check that out, Joe. I know I'm on the Independent Creator Directory, and a lot of other creators are on there. And I think his goal with it is eventually that it's going to be like it's basically going to be like the IMDb of like independent comic book creators.
Okay, cool. I like that idea.
Yeah. Oh, and then my other sponsor is Just Records. I hope I spelled that right. JustRecords.com. I'm working with him right now. The guy, my neighbor, owns a recording studio. It's called Just Records, and the website is just-records.com. And he's going to help me record a theme song for the show. And he's doing it pro bono, which is very nice of him.
Oh, sweet.
And the cool thing is he doesn't just record music. Any of you guys out there who are authors, if you need like an audiobook, he does that as well. So check out his website, just-records. So now I'm going to talk about kind of what's going on in my life right now. The big thing is Memoirs of the Morbid, as I just did the trailer for, and I am actually working on the last page of the comic book here. I think I started this last week, but this is probably what I'm going to end up working on today while we talk.
Okay.
And so I have 4 out of 5 panels done with this. And then I'm going to be completely done with the comic book, and we can start getting it proofread and stuff like that.
Right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and switch over my camera to my board.
Cool. And then I wanted to make kind of a mini announcement. So while I'm working on Memoirs of the Morbid, I'm also simultaneously working on issue 6 of Beowulf. and we started working on the cover for Beowulf 6. So I thought I would do the grand unveiling. Da, 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 da. This is what it's going to look like.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, obviously I still need to ink it and color it, but that's how much of the inks I have. The shadows on like all the little like cross hatching on the tongue.
Yeah.
It's going to be such a pain in the butt. Like I started working on that the other day and I thought I could finish it, but I just got like too bored.
Yeah, it can get tedious.
So what are you working on tonight, Rodney?
I am working on a piece of artwork that is going to be used for a print. This is one of the characters from Mandalorian Season 3 on Disney Plus. This is a character called Paz Vessla. If you're familiar with The Mandalorian at all, he's kind of Bo-Katan's right-hand man. So that's where we're at now. I'm in the inking process.
Is this the lady, the one who does? Oh, it's not. Okay.
No, I did her. I did Bo-Katan, and then I also did the armorer, who was also a female. And this guy, actually, this is Jon Favreau plays this character.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
So I watched the first 2 seasons. I've watched some of season 3, but I haven't watched all of it.
So I won't spoil anything for you.
So you said this is going to be a print?
Yeah.
And are these some things that you sell like at conventions and whatnot?
Yeah. We've cut down drastically on our prints because we do, we've got so many books now,
right?
But they do sell well, so it is nice to have some of those there to sell. And since there's so much new Star Wars out now, all the Star Wars prints that we've had are older, so we just decided that we needed some new ones. So I've got the new Mando piece with Grogu holding Grogu flying off with his jetpack, and I've got Bo-Katan, and I've got the armorer, and I'm doing Paz Vessla here, and then I've got an Ahsoka that's set up that I'll be doing next because her new series kicks off in 2 weeks. So we've got a couple of shows coming up end of June, mid-July, that I'd like to get her done for that as well. So have a whole new set of prints available for those shows.
Yeah,
along with issue 1 of Doghouse and issue 4 of Roadkill Rampage. So a little bit of everything.
So you're very busy, basically.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were sitting here before I hop back on because I just did my podcast at 5:30, and I've got a 12-page Roadkill Rampage story that's going to be going into an anthology.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I've got first edits back on that, and we were going over it and talking about how to adjust the story to make it just punch it up here and there in spots where I've been so isolated with the story, sitting here writing it by myself, and then the editors read it and they give me back the feedback and go, oh, you're lacking a little here, you're kind of dead here, you need to punch this up here, this doesn't sound in character. So I got those notes. I'll be taking that tomorrow and rewriting.
So is it an editor for the anthology, or is this like an editor that you hired?
It's the editors for the book. It's Nita Lanning and Tina. So they compare notes and we go over stuff because you know how it is. If you're a writer, you're so into what you're doing that you don't see the mistakes that you've made, or you don't see things that you overlooked or just
Yeah.
completely forgotten or whatever. So,
Right.
I had done that because I had written the story and I wrote it a certain way and it wasn't right. So I kept a third of it and I rewrote uh, 6 pages. And then I got that rewritten and I was reading it and I was like, you know what, this still isn't right because I still wrote it wrong. So
Right.
I got rid of it and I rewrote the last 4 pages. And I was like, okay. So there's stuff in there that, when you copy and paste from one to another, there's a couple of lines that I forgot to delete or a panel was repeated and stuff like that. And just stuff that I missed. So I'll go in tomorrow and adjust that, fix it all, and get it where it needs to be. And we can give it to the artist.
Yeah, I've always worked with an editor. I think it's, I think it's a really good idea. I mean, I don't always take all of the advice that my editor gives me.
Right.
I don't know if we've ever gotten into too big of an argument over anything. And then, like I was saying earlier, I do the memoirs of the morbid, which I end up being the editor in chief on that. Now, for this new volume, Brian K. Morris is a kind of like an assistant editor on that.
Good
Or
choice.
I think I called him the editor, and I called myself the editor in chief because I don't know if he'd be offended by assistant editor or not, but better not to offend Brian K. Morris, right?
Exactly.
But I've actually learned a lot from the editing process as well. Like learned stuff from. I mean, all the writers that I'm working with are people that I've read their stuff and liked before. So obviously, I respect their opinion. So I'm not going to tell them, you have to do it this way 100%.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I never really had a true editor until issue 1 of Roadkill Rampage.
Okay.
And we hired Casey Pierce, and she liked what we had, but she came back with some criticisms and stuff that I had heard before from people and never took into account. But I guess hearing it from a real life editor, I was like, oh, okay. And that really kind of swung things for me because it really made me open my eyes and realize that, okay, you might be writing a little too purple, or, because in my head, everything is, I grew up, I was a Marvel zombie. So I'm kind of, hearing things in my head, like Stan Lee, talks about things, very verbose and kind of silly. And that's good in some cases. But in a dramatic horror story, it doesn't work. So,
yeah. So you have to know your tone, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's one of the good things that a editor can do. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. I guess I did.
There it was.
Okay. There it goes.
It fooled you. There you go.
I thought I was going to sneeze, and I thought I wasn't going to sneeze, and it's like the reappearing, disappearing. Anyways, so that's one of the best things that an editor can do, where they say, okay, this doesn't fit the tone of the rest of your comic book. Like little things like that, or even, this line of dialogue doesn't necessarily sound like this character, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that stuff is I enjoy that. I don't. I always say that I don't really have an ego because you can criticize, you can give me your opinion, and I'm not going to go kick rocks and get all pissy because I want the feedback, because I'm only so good by myself. If I surround myself with people that know what the hell they're doing and can teach me, I am very receptive to being taught, so I enjoy it. I get a little frustrated because they they might not necessarily understand what I'm trying to convey, um, but that's my job to get them to understand what I'm trying to convey, and
Yeah.
it's their job to help pull it out of me. So it's a group effort.
So probably the biggest thing that an editor has done for me was originally Beowulf was going to be a 10 issue series, and my editor like basically told me like nobody has the attention span for a 10 issue series from like a brand new comic book creator, and he said you need to like figure out a way to cut that in half. And yeah, I basically did. I mean, I cut it way down into from 10 issue. When I did the outline originally, I was planning on it being 10 issues, and when I finished writing it, it ended up being about 6 issues, or it ended up being exactly 6 issues. So um, yeah, so I was able to cut that down, but I did feel like he was trying to chop up my baby a little bit. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Oh, believe me, I get it. I did read issue 5 today.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
Cool.
because we did a Kickstarter unboxing last night.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we saved them, so we had probably 25 of them, and we opened them at once, and it's
That's
just a
so
way to
awesome.
kind of give everybody a little shout out and show off their book and all the swag that they included and all that stuff, and so plus it was garbage night, so we had everything in a big pile after we opened it up, and I just
Oh,
carried
I
it.
thought you were implying you were going to put the
No. All the Gemini mailers and stuff that we can't reuse or whatever, and
right.
the extra backing boards and bubble wrap that's all torn and everything like that. So, because I was out in the driveway with the one garbage can, and Tina comes out. She goes, "Hey, you know what we can do tonight?" I said, "What?" She goes, "We can open up all these Kickstarter packages because it's garbage night, and we can throw out all of the packaging." And I was like, "Brilliant!" So we did a 40-minute video opening up all the Kickstarters and got a bunch of feedback. So that was great. It was a lot of fun.
That's actually awesome. Would you be offended if I stole that idea?
Absolutely not. Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I back a fair amount of books. I've actually started to move towards doing mostly digital rewards just because like our house is starting to get like so congested with all this Kickstarter, like it's not just the Kickstarter, but also like you were saying, like the swag and stuff.
Right.
It's like,
And it's interesting because there are people that order from us and they'll tell us, I just want the book.
yeah,
I know I ordered this tier or whatever, but I just want the book. I don't want, or I want the book and the print. I don't want the coaster and the keychain and the bookmark and all that stuff. So there are
maybe
people,
that's what I need to start doing.
yeah, they just don't want it, which is fine with us. To each his own.
I mean, my thing is, it's like, okay, like you open the package and you see, like, okay, if they include like a print or something, you spend 5 seconds looking at it and going, oh, that's cool, and then it just ends up going into a drawer somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, at this point, it's just like we've got so much. I think we're trying to cut back on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. A lot of times we'll just take now the stickers and the magnets, they go on the refrigerator. Although I got these, these metal tabourets that you get at Michael's, and I stick those stickers all over the tabourets here in the studio. But the mini prints and the stuff like that, I just put them back in the board, in the bag and board with the book. so they're with the
Oh,
book.
okay.
You know,
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
everything's all in one spot. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm going on Grant's show tonight, and we just opened all of them. And issue 5 was in there, so I'm going to grab it real quick and I'm going to read it because I've read the first couple of issues, but it's been so long ago, and
You
I
were
could
worried I was going to give you a pop quiz or something?
no, I wanted to be well versed just in
Yeah.
case. Yes, but I couldn't find because we've got all 5 issues, but I couldn't find them. So I was like,
Isn't
okay,
that
well,
the problem always?
yeah, just read issue 5, and that's the most current one. So, and you know what? Just be honest about it and say you read the first one, and the second one, and the third one, but it was a while ago, and I don't remember a lot about it because I've read 100 other books since then.
Yeah, you know what? You're better at this than I am because I know I have a couple of your comic books here somewhere, but I did not do adequate homework. I did not. I mean, I've read them before, but I read them a while ago.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I remember you bought issue 1 of Roadkill Rampage from us in at Gem City in Dayton last.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of conventions around Ohio?
Now, yes and no. We've cut back our shows post COVID, simply because Kickstarter has kind of allowed us to just do it through Kickstarter.
Okay.
And so we're conscious of overexposing ourselves in the region, so we just do a select few shows in the area. We don't travel really far anymore and do the bigger shows because they're just not cost effective anymore. Because we can pretty much fund the book on Kickstarter,
Right.
and we do the podcasts and stuff like that. So I mean, in the past we've done 25 or so shows a year. We've gone to Boston and Kansas City and Detroit and Rhode Island and Heroes Con and all those places, but we don't do it anymore. It's just not. It's as much as I would love to because I love doing shows. It's not economically feasible to do the big ones anymore. They're so
Yeah.
expensive now.
I really wanted to go to Heroes Con, but it just
It's
wasn't in the cards.
it's it's not. I don't think it's for guys that are where we are. It's not. I just don't. I don't think you're gonna ever recoup your money. It's such a big show. Um, you just kind of get lost in the weeds there.
See, that's how I felt about Baltimore Con. Like everybody told me, "Oh, Baltimore Con is one of the great comic book conventions. It's one of the best in the country." And yeah, like you said, I kind of felt like we kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, yeah, and we've done Baltimore a few times, and really enjoyed it. Um, but it's the same thing. It's now we didn't have near as many books as we do now back then, but we did okay the one year, and then I think we've done it two or three. I know we've done it twice. I can't remember. We've done it 3 times. But yeah, it's that. Okay, is it really worth it to drive 600 miles to break even?
Yeah.
You know?
So that's kind of what I've been thinking about um, the past couple months. Wow, can you hear all these sirens out my window? Uh,
Oh yeah. What
wow,
did you
I don't
do,
know.
Grant?
Yeah, they're coming after me. Sorry. Apparently, it's against the law to do a drawing stream now.
Oh man.
Um, uh, what were we talking about? Yeah, I don't know. We're kind of thinking about paring back some of our convention going.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, it can be tough to break even at these things.
Yeah.
I mean, not. I mean, you not only have to factor in like the table fee, but you have to factor in, the Airbnb, gas money. I don't know. Sometimes I factor in the food that we're eating too, because I mean that's another thing. I mean, if I wasn't going to these conventions, I probably wouldn't be going out to eat afterwards.
Right.
So, I mean, I think to a certain degree, you have to take the food into account, that the money that you're spending on that too. Um, so yeah, and not only that, but I mean, every minute that you spend at the convention or every minute that you spend in a car is a minute that you're not working on your comic book. So,
I don't know. Sometimes we work in the car.
oh really?
Oh yeah, we'll write in the car.
Oh,
Um,
so you like brainstorm ideas?
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. That's actually where we came up with the idea for peanut pudding and jelly. Was
Oh, yeah.
we went to Pittsburgh, and on the way home we came up with the idea for it, and that's where it was born, on the road home from Pittsburgh.
Which convention did you do in Pittsburgh?
The one that was out in the old one before it was bought by Wizard.
Oh, I think that was just called Pittsburgh Comic Convention. Yeah,
Pittsburgh Comic Con. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I used to go to that. I might even have seen you there. But yeah, that sadly is no more.
Yeah.
Um, now we have Steel City Comic Con, and we have Three Rivers Comic Con.
That just
Um,
happened too, didn't it? Three Rivers?
Three Rivers happened not this past weekend, but the weekend before that.
Okay.
And that's one of my favorite ones.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Steel City is like the big like celebrity show, and we don't do that one anymore, just because it's all about the celebrities that come. It's like, I mean, you try talking to people about you try talking to people at these conventions, and like 90% of the people you talk to say, "Yeah, sorry, I don't read comic books." And it's like, you're at a freaking comic book convention and you don't read comic books. What's like? But
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of these comic conventions are becoming more pop culture conventions, and the comic books are kind of like way on the back burner.
I guess secondary. Yeah. Yeah, they have to. They have to be diverse because they can only sell so many comic book tables. You know, their money's limited if that's all they do. So they branch out and they bring in celebrities and you know, yeah, I mean it's we've been going through that for the better part of 13 years. You see it that when they start off, they're great because they've got a plan and a vision, but reality sets in after 3 years when they've hit the ceiling because all they're bringing in is comic book creators, and they realize, well, if I brought in Shatner, if I brought in Henry Winkler or somebody like that, then people will come to see them, and I'll be able to sell $30,000 worth of additional tickets for that, and that's how it starts. And
Well,
that's just business.
I mean, I hope I don't sound like I hate the celebrity guests or anything like that.
No, not at all.
But um, hey, Allison, nice seeing you tonight.
Hey, Allison.
Um, um, for me, it's like it used to be. You would have guys like William Shatner or Mark Hamill, people who weren't necessarily not necessarily comic book creators, but maybe like sci-fi or fantasy adjacent.
Right.
Something that was still kind of related.
Right. It was in the genre.
But I mean, like I mean, this past year, Steel City Comic Con had Paula Abdul as a celebrity guest. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I like that video with the cat in it. I can't remember the name of the song, but I mean, but it's
Opposites.
also like, what does Paula Abdul have anything to do with comic books or sci-fi or anything?
Right.
And that's just like one example. They also had like Kelsey Grammer, another. I guess he was on an episode of Star Trek, wasn't he? Or was he in one of the movies?
Uh, I'm not sure.
Well, anyways, that's not what he's known for, but
Right.
but yeah,
Although he's did a bunch of voices for The Simpsons.
that's true. Oh, and I forgot he was Beast in the one X-Men movie, wasn't he?
Oh, that's right. Yes. I completely forgot about that.
That was interesting casting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these conventions are getting further away from like kind of their original goal. But some of those celebrity guests have got to be making a ton of money for these conventions. They're charging like, I don't know what the conventions, what percentage they take of that, but God, if they're charging $80 an autograph.
Well, they also have guarantees. So let's say that they bring in Kelsey Grammer. He's probably got a $50,000 guarantee, meaning that whatever he doesn't make in his doing his signing his autographs and selling his pictures and getting pictures with people, let's say that he does that all weekend long and he makes $42,000. The convention, the people that own the convention have to make up that $8,000. He's got a $50,000 guarantee. That's how that works.
I don't know. From looking at the lines of people like waiting for these autographs and these and autographs and photos and stuff, I think they're probably making their money.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing is it's no longer the people that run the shows realize that they can only make so much money pandering to the comic book crowd because they know they've already got those people on the hook. They are already going to show up. So they know they can count on that money. They're trying to bring in the new people. And the new people who don't know anything about comics want to come see Paula Abdul and they want to come see the Fonz and they want to come see Kelsey Grammer and people like that because that's who they relate to because they've been watching them on TV for 30 years.
Right.
That's how they're going to get that family to the show. So it's a tactic. It's that's why they don't call them Comic-Cons anymore. They're expos because expo is all encompassing.
Right. Well, and also Comic-Con that has a derogatory connotation now. People think, oh, that's for nerds.
Oh, that's always had that.
Right. But
now it's cool to be a nerd, but that won't last.
No, you don't think that's going to last?
No, it wasn't that way when I was in high school. People that collected comic books were ridiculed and laughed at.
Right.
But I was a big guy, and I wouldn't let you pick on me. So if you wanted to call me a nerd, we were going to fight.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it comes and goes. Like anything else in pop culture, it's all cyclical. Because the Marvel movies. I don't know about you, but 10 years ago, it was an event to go to a Marvel movie. Everybody went. The place was sold out, and you were lucky if you were going to get a seat. Nowadays, the theater is half full, and the people are scoffing at the movies because they've just reached, saturation points with the Marvel movies, and DC's not doing themselves any favors with the movies they've been putting out. So I think it's just superhero burnout, superhero fatigue.
For sure. But then I hear what you're saying, but then again, I've thought, oh, this is going to be over soon. I've thought that 1,000 times over the last 20 years.
Right.
I mean, people were starting to talk about superhero fatigue in like 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
When the first Spider-Man movie came out, and it was like, oh my God, people really want to see superhero movies. And then it was like, it was just like a rush to get every superhero that's ever been created onto the silver screen. And a lot of that, I would say a lot of that is that for years and years, there weren't enough superhero movies.
Right. They weren't good superhero movies.
Right. I remember watching the Captain America movie when I was a kid, and it was like, what the hell is this?
Right.
That might actually be
what really changed the game, aside from the Spider-Man movies, was Iron Man.
Right.
Because that really set everybody on their heels. They were like, whoa, you can tell a kick-ass superhero story and have him look kick-ass.
Well, and not only that, but the fact that Iron Man wasn't like a big name superhero before that. I would say he was like more of like a B-list superhero than a C-list.
I don't know that I would agree with that. He's considered part of the Holy Trilogy in Marvel Comics with the Avengers.
Really?
Yeah, it's got Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, who they refer to as the Holy Trilogy with the Avengers, meaning that they bring those three back when they kind of reboot to bring everything back to the basics. So they'll bring those three back because the core Avengers team are those three with the Wasp and Clint Barton in whatever form he's in. And the Hawk was always kind of a cursory member. But those were the three mainstays: Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. So yeah, he's always been. I mean, I've read Iron Man my entire life. I mean, growing up as a kid, he was one. I always bought Iron Man. I loved it. And it was because he was in the Avengers. So when I finally was old enough to realize, hey, he's got his own book, go buy his own book, and that was good too. I was like, oh, okay, I get him twice a month now.
Yeah. So you wouldn't put the Hulk in that list?
I would, but I was just using the term that they use. There's a term that they use, and they call it the Holy Trilogy. Those three characters, but the Hulk is also in that. And Spider-Man, if you think of and now you have to throw Wolverine in there too, and Deadpool, because everybody that doesn't read comics knows who Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, Wolverine, and Deadpool are. Everybody knows who those characters are.
Right.
Not everybody knows who Storm is. They know, hey, there's that black chick with the white hair, but they don't know who she is.
Right.
There's that fuzzy blue guy that looks like a blue ape, but they don't know what his name is, what book he's in. But everybody knows those 7 characters. And that's their core. Along with the Fantastic Four, but that they kind of got sidetracked because of the whole licensing issue and not owning the rights and trying to get it away from 20th Century Fox and all that. So they shut it down and stopped producing the book and all that other stuff. So they kind of got, they were the Fantastic Four and the Avengers were the centers of the Marvel universe and Spider-Man for decades, and then they kind of got pushed to the side when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was launched and they completely had to rewrite everything to fit not having those characters in their lexicon, that they kind of got forgotten by the mainstream folks. So they've had to do a lot of reintroducing of the Fantastic Four. And we'll just wait till that movie comes out. They're going to be all over the place.
So I never watched the one that came out a few years ago that everybody said was a train wreck.
One with the Silver Surfer in it.
I think I saw that one. There was the first one. We're talking about the ones with like Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one where it was like Galactus was more treated like it was like a cloud of smoke or something like that. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, those movies weren't very good.
No.
But then they rebooted that, and I never saw the reboot. But apparently those are pretty awful. I did watch. Did you ever watch the Roger Corman one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's pretty interesting too.
Oh,
Special effects are pretty abysmal. I liked the guy who played Doctor Doom because like you can't see his face, so he does all his acting with his hands.
right. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good word to use.
Yeah, I don't know if the Fantastic Four is cursed or something, because they've now had 4 movies and none of them have been really very good.
Well, the only reason they Roger Corman did that movie was so they could retain their movie rights to it.
Yeah, I have heard that.
And they never really had any intention, and I just found this out a couple of months ago. They never really had any intentions of releasing that movie. They just literally did it so they could retain the movie rights. And the guy that played Reed Richards and the girl that played Sue Storm, they really thought, this was going to be their big break, and they were going to be big time movie stars now. And so, they were giving it their all. So I'm told. I haven't seen the movie in 30 years. But yeah, Corman and them never really intended it to be anything other than it was just a stopgap so they could retain the movie rights.
Now, did Roger Corman know that too?
I believe he did, yes.
I mean, that makes me sad that the poor actors were like thinking like, oh yeah, we're gonna be big time movie stars. I think they were all like soap opera stars, right?
I believe so, yeah.
But yeah, it's funny how far comic book movies have come, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but I remember like the big thing with those Tim Burton Batman movies was like, can you believe they made a Batman movie and you can't take your kids to see it? And it's like, it's crazy, but now it's just kind of
This is not
like assumed that a Batman movie isn't necessarily going to be a kids movie.
Right. Well, I don't know if you're old enough to remember when they announced that Michael Keaton was cast as Batman, there was a frenzy. People were pissed.
Right.
Because he didn't fit the mold. They were like, what are you talking about? Michael Keaton as Batman? Oh, that's terrible.
So I'm not really old enough to remember that aspect of it. I remember going to see that first Tim Burton Batman movie. And again, I think I was like 9. when it came out. So my big question was like, hey, why wasn't Robin in that movie? But that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, how like Batman, it's almost like Batman has two different demographics that love him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
They still sell action figures. They still have cartoons for the kids. But then, the most recent, what was it? The Batman got pretty freaking dark.
Oh, I really enjoyed that one. But
Yeah,
I'm also I'm of both schools because there's two schools of Batman. There's the family friendly Batman, and there's the Frank Miller side of Batman. You know,
right.
Frank Miller introduced the seedy side of the D. It's Frank Miller's fault.
Right.
The DC universe is so dark and broody now because Batman: The Dark Knight was such an incredible departure from the norm, and it was such a huge hit that it kind of caught the comic book industry by surprise because people really didn't. It hadn't been done to that extent at that point, and it was brilliant because right about that time, The Watchmen had come out. So all of us, and then we got the Dark Knight, and he was doing what he was doing with Daredevil and Elektra and the pages of Daredevil, and Bill Sienkiewicz and Chris Claremont were doing what they were doing with Demon Bear and the New Mutants. So all of a sudden, the comic books went from super bright pastel colors, happy-go-lucky hero versus villain, to wait a second, we're going to introduce adult themes and put these make-believe characters in all these adult situations, and it worked, and people had a thirst for it, and all of a sudden everything changed, especially in the DC universe.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I mean, I know Angie and I were just actually talking about this because we did a review of the Batman '89 comic book. Did you take a look at that?
Yeah.
Um, and we were talking about like how Tim Burton got essentially fired from those movies, and you look at what a great job he did, and you think to yourself, oh my god, how could they have fired him? And when you look at that era, what comes to my mind is really like none of these movie executives knew or understood what was going on in comic books.
No, they had no idea what they had, for one, because of the negative stigma that was attached to comic books. They were afraid of them. They were afraid that they're just for kids, so it's going to have a limited market. Only the kids are going to watch it, and we can't put a bunch of money into it because it's just going to be a kids thing. And they had no idea um, the potential of the characters and the adult themes that had been introduced, since the mid '80s. They
Yeah,
did. They were just they weren't. They were just out of touch.
I think, that's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier when we were talking about how, like, yeah, I hear people when they say like, there's superhero overload, but I think part of the reason why there have been so many superhero movies over the past, well, at this point it's 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
um like that's the thing that I think is funny when people say that comic book movies are a fad. It's like, okay, well, like the first wave of comic book movies came in like 2001. So if you're going to say that it's a fad, it's been a fad that's lasted like 2 decades. I mean,
Right.
but the point I was trying to make is that I think part of the reason why there's so much overkill with superhero genre is that for years and years there was nothing.
Right.
Um, and I wonder that all the time. Like why did it take over 60 years for there to be a Wonder Woman movie? You know what I mean?
I think it was technology. if you go back and think about what Lucas did with Star Wars, he pulled back the story that he wanted to tell with the original trilogy because of his limitations with technology. And when
Right.
he saw Jurassic Park and he saw the computer uh, animation that was being done on Jurassic Park, he knew that it was time to start doing the first trilogy
Right.
because the technology had advanced enough to do what he wanted to do on the scope that he wanted to do it on. Now, some will argue that he went a little too far, but
Right.
you know, I think it was the limitations of technology to do it right. With the grand scope that you need to do a superhero movie in.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, um, there's a lot of interesting comments here. I want to get into this. Yeah, I mean, I can see to a certain degree what you're saying, where it's like, they didn't have the technology. I don't think they could have done like Spider-Man without CGI.
Right.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, they made some pretty good Superman movies without, CGI.
Yeah, they did. And, as a matter of fact, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was watching a clip the other day of a flying sequence with Christopher Reeves and Superman. And I looked at it and I stopped what I was doing and to watch it because I thought, he doesn't look like he's on strings at all. How did they do that?
Yeah.
And it was really impressive for something that is almost 40 years old now. I was like, wow, that's really impressive because nowadays, a lot of them look like they're on wires, but he didn't look like he was on wires back then.
Okay, so Heron says Batman having the widest demographic of any superhero is why DC relies on the Batman. I don't know how to pronounce that. So heavily to keep its comic sales from becoming more of a. Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit annoying right now. I can't I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's something like one out of every four comic books that DC publishes is related to Batman in some way. I think it might even be worse, a bigger percentage than that.
Yeah. But you know what though? I I'm kind of okay with it because we went to the comic book shop the other day and we don't go very often. And there are some absolutely amazing artists on the Batman books now. And even though there are, 14 different Batman books every month, um, it's different sections of the Batman universe. You've got the whole Batgirl part of it. You've got the whole Robin Red Hood part of it. So there are different chunks of it going on. Different. So to me, it's interesting. I don't read any of it, but I am a big fan of a lot of the artists. I just can't afford to read it all because there's so much of it. Like you said, there, you know, but
I don't.
it's interesting, and I would at some point like to, I go and I pick up the trades at shows,
Yeah,
discounted to the scratch and dent trades, for $5 or $7, and that's how I get caught up. But
that's not a
most,
bad way to do it.
yeah, most of the stuff that I read, I mean, I really like it. I mean, if you think about it, Capullo did
Oh,
lights
he's
out
the
work
best.
on that book for a better part of 5 years. And then I don't know if you know who Jimenez, Jorge Jimenez, an artist from
Oh
Spain.
yeah, he's the
He
best.
is phenomenal. My
Did
God,
you see? Did
I
you see
follow
the
him on.
Batman? Sorry,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Did you see the Batman Dark Knight Returns uh, tribute that he did? I don't know if it was. Again, I didn't. Maybe this is why the comic book industry is in such a bad place right now. Like I saw all the drawings on Instagram and I thought they looked amazing, but it didn't make me go out and rush to get the comic book. But he did some type of tribute to the Dark Knight Returns in a recent issue of Batman, and it really was cool how his style kind of changed to kind of morph into like Frank Miller's
Yeah.
style.
I haven't seen it, but I will definitely, because I do follow him on Instagram, so I'll go check it out after the show.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
I mean, I'm with you. The artwork is all beautiful, but yeah, I don't buy the books on a consistent basis.
I mean, a lot of it is, like you said, how expensive it is.
Yeah.
Um, um, and then, the other thing is like a lot of time the times, these comic books are connected. So if you just buy a comic book at random and you're reading it and it's like, oh my god, I have to read 15 different comic books to figure out what's going on in this one comic book.
Yeah.
um yeah, that's a big.
Let me suggest something to you. I talk about this all the time. If people probably get tired of me talking about it, but I'm going to keep talking about it because that's how much I dig it. Marvel Unlimited is it's an app, and it's $9.99 a month, and you can go read everything except the last 6 months up to current.
Wow.
And I've had it for 5 years, and every night when we go to bed, I'll lay there and I'll read in this. I mean, dude, I read all of the. If you're a fan of Daredevil, I read all the Frank Miller stuff, and then I went up to
Oh,
the
wow.
to the Ramita stuff with what's her name, Typhoid Mary, and then I got into the Bendis stuff, and then the Brubaker stuff. I mean, when you follow Bendis with Brubaker on Daredevil, that was 7 or 8 years of gold. But it's all right there, and it costs you $10 a month. And I reread all Amazing Spider-Man. I'm rereading the Avengers. I reread all the Uncanny X-Men. From issue 94 all the way up to almost issue 300. And it's $10 a month.
Yeah, I really need to sit down and read the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff, because that. I'm a huge Frank Miller fan, but I haven't read a lot of the stuff where it kind of started
Yeah.
back in the early '80s with his Daredevil. I know that stuff is iconic, and I know that it's great, and I love Daredevil too. So he's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
He might be my favorite Marvel character, but you have to remember I'm a DC guy.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Um, I wasn't growing up. Um, the thing that really turned me into DC guy was the all the different Bruce Timm animated series,
Okay.
which we were talking about that, about how Batman is kind of a weird character in that he straddles so many different demographics. To me, the Batman the animated series from the early '90s was kind of the one that did it the best, where um, it was intended for kids, but adults definitely could watch it too.
Well, you know what it was. And again, you might be too young, but for the people that have been Batman fans that grew up on Looney Tunes, which was Warner Brothers,
Right.
the Looney Tunes cartoons appealed. They had adult jokes in there that the kids didn't get, but the kids would be laying on the floor watching the TV, laughing at the stuff that was funny for the kids, and the adults would be standing behind them in the kitchen watching the TV and cracking up because of the adult undertones. And that's
Right.
exactly what they did with that Batman series, and that's why it resonated so much with different generations for that
Yeah.
exact same reason.
Yeah, it's almost 30 years later, and we're still talking about it.
Oh yeah,
How many animated series have that kind of longevity? And it's just the kind of like the perfect animated series. Just like all of the voices are perfect.
yeah. It's like sitting down and watching a movie. I know that might sound odd to say that, but I mean it is. It's kind of It's like the Frank Miller Daredevils. They're iconic. They're must watches.
I mean, the crazy thing to me is, when I read a comic book with Batman in it, I picture Kevin Conroy's voice
Right.
when Batman speaks, and I mean that's most of the Batman characters. I don't think there's any other animated series that I do that with. I mean I don't. I mean whoever did the voice for Spider-Man, I don't picture his voice when I hear Spider-Man's voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know what's odd though? Now that you mentioned hearing the voice, when I read a Batman comic book, I hear Michael Keaton's voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I just realized that. And that's kind of weird because I grew up with Adam West, with Adam West as Batman.
So I watched a special preview of the Flash movie, and uh, both me and my stepdaughter enjoyed it. So, you think you'll end up going to see that?
I want to, yeah. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't seen the new Spider-Man cartoon. But yeah, I need to get out there and see those because
Yeah, I've heard both of those are actually really good.
yeah. So I'm excited to see them.
So I've had this comment up here. Carl says the original Superman movie was one of the big movies that started a lot of this. The more I think about it, I think that original Superman movie really showed the idea that comic books weren't just for kids.
Right.
Um, Everything from I mean, casting Marlon Brando as Superman's dad. Um, it just everybody knew that Marlon Brando was this Academy Award winning guy, and the fact that he was in a Superman movie was just it must have blown people's minds.
Oh yeah, I remember when it came out. It's interesting because I really haven't thought of it because we never really talk about the original Superman movie. But when it came out, I was so emotionally invested because I was a kid and I tried so hard to get the adults to acknowledge that comic books were cool, that there was some legitimacy to them. And, they never paid attention to it because it was the 70s and the adults were always busy with their lives. And when Superman came out, people stopped and took notice because it resonated with them because it was the American icon. It was baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. It's an American lexicon. It's Superman. Superman's a global figure. Everybody knows who Superman is. And people stopped and watched and cheered. And that was great for me when it came out in 78. Star Wars came out in 77, Superman came out in 78, and all of a sudden it was a whole different world.
That must have been such an exciting time.
It was great because I was a kid and everything was magic. Jaws came out in 76, and so we had Jaws, we had Star Wars, and we had Superman.
Yeah, I guess for me it would have been Batman, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh yeah, love that movie.
Oh God, you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
I saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit over 50 times in the theater.
Wow.
Now, okay, like when I say it like that, it sounds really crazy. To give you an idea of this, my mom's job was working for a movie theater company. So like she had to travel around to like all these different movie theaters. And I think she would just put me in the movie theater and say like, hey, watch this movie. But
you have access.
Right. So my mom wasn't paying for me to go see Who Framed Roger Rabbit that many times. But the big movies for me as a kid, I think were that Batman, and then I don't know if you like this movie, but The Rocketeer was like a really big movie for me when I
Oh
was a
yeah,
kid.
I love the Rocketeer. Yeah, that and I wanted I always wanted more with the Rocketeer because I really enjoyed it because it was that noir character, wrapped around World War II, and I love anything around World War II. Um, that is such a rich period of time for storytelling. So that movie really resonated with me.
Yeah, it was funny. Like I loved that movie, and like all my friends loved it. And it wasn't until years later that I found out, like, oh, it really wasn't like a box office hit or anything.
No, not at all. And Blade Runner was that for me because I absolutely love Blade Runner, and it was a box office flop. And I was like, I don't care. I love it. I mean, I cared in the sense that I knew they weren't going to make a sequel because it didn't do well. But, at the time, it was too cerebral. It was a very deep movie. But I loved it. It had Harrison Ford and had killer androids. And, what more could you want? Ridley Scott directing. Come on.
Right. Okay, Rodney. So I try to keep these to around an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't feel like
I
it's
know.
actually been over an hour. Um, so go ahead. Let me know what it is that you want to promote
Okay.
or where
Well,
people can find you.
you all can find me at Rodney Fyke Art on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch. You can also find me on the Hazm YouTube channel. That's HAZZUM, as well as Hazm.com. Again, HAZZUM.com, where you can check out all of our books. And tomorrow night at 8:30 on the Indie Comics Network, where you can also find me on Thursday nights for Thursday Night Throwdown and Mondays at 5:30 for Fyke It Let's Draw. Tomorrow night, we will be launching at 8:30 our Kickstarter campaign for Roadkill Rampage issue 4. This will be wrapping up the story arc, so we finally get to see what happens to Tess and how it all comes to an end. So come check us out tomorrow on the Indie Comics Network at 8:30 and join us. We'll have some folks in there with us and get to show you the trailer and check out all the ins and outs of the Kickstarter.
Sounds awesome.
Excellent. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Actually, you know what, Rodney? I'll be messaging you because as you know, I have a Kickstarter coming up.
Okay.
Hopefully, you won't mind having me on your show too much.
That sounds good. I actually messaged Tina because she's the one that sets up the scheduling for the shows.
That's right.
Okay.
So, anyways, as I always say, check me out. I'm GW Lankard pretty much everywhere. And I'm going to put the link to my upcoming Kickstarter in there. I think probably everybody in the chat is already on my Kickstarter, but thank you guys. Thanks everybody for coming on the show. And Rodney, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody. Nice to meet everybody.
Have a great night, guys.